So today I'm going to be getting on with the front wheel bearing change on the Yamaha Fazer. So I've put the bike on its centre stand. I'm just going to get a jack under the exhaust just to tip it back slightly. That should just lift the wheel off the ground. Not taking any weight off it, I'm just balancing it. I'm just going to slacken off the mud guard because that's probably going to get in the way. Just going to use a ratchet ring spanner for that. Okay. Push that out the back of there actually. Yeah, there you go. This is a 19mm. I'm just going to crack that off with a breaker bar. Yep, it does feel very tight, which it should be. Probably going to be looking at 60 Nm on that or something. It feels much tighter. Right. That's free now. What I'm going to do, just loosen these, or this side, the pinch bolt first, because he's grabbing that somewhat. That's going to be contributing to its feeling of stiffness. Okay, that's loose enough. Okay, I need to take the calipers off because I'm going to be driving the wheel backwards that way through the forks. The calipers are in the way, and I'm doing it like that because I don't want to be pulling on this speedo drive cable. Good grief. Over reliance of Loctite on this bike, I think. Well, that was okay. There's a small clip on here I just need to pick open. It's holding that cable to the brake hose. Let's see if I can just get that apart. Yeah. I might be able to reuse that, don't know. Doesn't matter. It goes back on there, it just hooks on there. I'll just pull this away. I came quite easily away from the disc. It's a tiny little ridge on the disc, not too major. Anyway, just going to hook a bungee cord through there. Don't worry too much if you can't do this, because motorcycle calipers are not that heavy. They're not going to put too much strain on the cable. I was going to hook it up there somewhere. Right, let's do the other side. So these are just 12mm bolts on here. You can see the wheels moving now, so I've nothing to press against. Stick the breaker bar back on there. say this every time when you do a job like this, any sort of job, loosen all your bolts first. Okay. And give yourself enough room to swing the spanner or whatever it is you're using. Should better get back on that okay now. Yeah. Okay, we'll hook this one up too. And pull that up and away. Right, the only thing we've got to be careful of here is just noting which way spacers come out and speedo drives, things like that. So I think there's a spacer on the right hand side, which is the other side of the wheel, to the one we're on, and the speedo drive of course is just sat behind here. That's the cable, so we're going to see if we can push this back, get it out. Might be a bit of a fiddle. The actual space just come out from the other side, looks a little bit warm. We'll have a little look at that. Just, there you go, that's dropped out. Getting it back in might be a little bit of fun, but that is just bike maintenance for you. You've got a couple of little locating tabs on there, so they're quite substantial. It doesn't look like it's going to be too tricky actually, having said all that. So right, so we will just hook this up somewhere to stop any tension on that cable. Not that it really weighs anything, to be perfectly honest with you, so but we'll just get it out of the way nonetheless. And we should just be able to roll the wheel out. Right, I have previously, let's just get this supported properly. If you check out my other videos, taken the back wheel off and removed the bearings out of that with a view to replacing them, and then went and replaced the whole wheel. So I didn't do a video of putting bearings back in because the wheel that I put on already had decent bearings and they were in really good shape, pre-fitted, so I didn't change them out. But these bearings are shot, they're whining and groaning, and I need to replace them. You can see the two little lugs here for the speedo drive, so that should be okay to locate back in nice and easily. So I just need to come in here with a instrument and move that spacer tube aside so that I can come behind this inner race from the other side of the wheel and give it a few smacks to drive it out. It's fairly straightforward. I felt that click over. So you can always see I've got a nice lip there now, so I should be able to get behind that from the other side with the drift. And I think you can see it clearly right there. Stuck now. Looks surprisingly clean. Grind this down some way just to get it in there at the angles I needed to get behind the inner race, but Some tools are just meant to be disposable. I'm guessing that's damage where I've hit it with the drift, but anyway, getting replaced, so it doesn't matter. Okay, on this side then, we've got a dust cover that we need to pick out, so let's get a sharp instrument for that. It's only on one side, because on the other side it's encased with the speedo drive. It wasn't too tricky. So we'll flip the wheel over again. So the second one's always much easier. With the spacer out of the way, you can get right behind it in a race. And what I'm going to use on this is a suitably sized bearing puller to give it a push. This should take just 2 or 3 little knocks. Okay, 6. Doesn't look too bad, but it was definitely whining on the bike. Well, one or the other of them was anyway. Okay, I'm going to give the hub a little bit of a clean this side and the other side. To be fair, it's all looking pretty good. This side's a little bit scuzzier. This is the speedo drive side. Yeah, I think we're good to get the new bearings in. Just going to push this through. Yes, it's pretty clean. Pop that aside. That's the spacer and the speedo drive itself. I'm going to give those a really good clean up. I dropped that, which is why it's all covered in swarf off the floor. Okay, they're all nice and clean, so I'm going to move on to getting the bearings in. Now you can install the bearings in a variety of different ways. I've got a couple of bearing drivers here out of a set of about 50, I guess. This is a 39, that's a 38mm. They both fit very neatly inside the hub, so you know they're not going to get wedged. And essentially all you do is you lay your bearing on and then you just hammer it home in the same way you hammer it out from the other side. Nice and easy. Don't forget, of course, to put your spacer tube back in. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull them in simultaneously. I've got a length of, you could just use a length of dowel with a couple of nuts. You could just use a big nut and bolt, but you'd probably spend a good tenner on that. This is a lead screw, so it's got a trapezoidal thread, and I think it's 12mm with a 3mm pitch from memory. And I'm going to pull the bearings in from both sides at the same time. Right, let's get this thing stood up and chopped up so we can work on it. Don't need those anymore. Okay, I'm going to grease up both sides of the hub. And stick a little bit of grease down the axle tube. So I'm just going to put some grease down there. Okay, and then around the outsides. This really preserves it all from moisture more than anything. Sure, there you go. It just needs to sit in there really. So I've got my bearings and my drivers ready. I've got a ratchet ring spanner and a regular ring spanner, 22mm, and my lead screw. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get those all in place, and these have been in the freezer, so they are going to stay cold for some fair old time. And that should help with fitting them, because these are essentially an interference fit. So I'm going to slot the driver and the bearing on and feed that through. Put that spacer back in. Okay, and the benefit of this, of course, is the lead screw is going to hold the spacer tube in the middle there in place whilst we do everything up. So get everything straight. So yeah, I'm using a 38 and a 39mm driver, and what that means is neither of them will get wedged in the hub, because they're both just a tiny bit smaller, and I'm just trying to position them so they sit exactly on the outer race. The beauty of this, of course, is you can undo things and do it back up again to reposition. So let's get started. So what I'm going to do is hold the ring spanner on the other side and just ratchet this one in, and I'm going to watch them both go. This one's going nicely this side. Both seem to be going quite nicely. One will probably seat first, and then the other one will continue until it seats. Just going to undo that to make sure I have got the spacer tube in the right place. I don't want to be getting that all caught up yet. Seems fine. Didn't really want to do that, but everything seems to be located now inside the hub, so everything's going to kind of self-centralise. In fact, actually, this one, this side, on the right hand side, seems to be almost in, whereas this one isn't. They are, of course, an interference fit, so just need to keep pulling them. Need a little way more on this side. Probably don't even need to hold the spanner on the other side now, to be fair. Right, I think that's seated because that's gone really tight. So what we'll do is we'll pull that lead screw out and see what we're looking like. Seems to have gone all the way in. You can see the bearing pretty much sitting flush with where that speedo drive goes in. Well, you can't see anything this side because it's disappeared all inside, but we'll undo this lead screw and see what it's looking like. Okay, that looks perfectly straight, perfectly seated, and it's the same on this side. Just make sure your spindle goes through okay and doesn't get fouled on the spacer tube not being centralised properly. This is the time where you can easily knock it across. I'm just going to put a little bit more grease around there, and then when the spindle goes through, it'll carry some of that through. We'll grease the spindle up as well. You only need to put a very fine layer on there. It's all going to get pushed through. There's not really any clearance, so to speak, or to speak of. Let's get some in there both sides. Right, I'm just going to slip the dust seal in that side. Just going to get something to tap that in. Just a soft blow hammer. Just a tiny bit more grease around that, and the reason I'm doing that is so I can slot the spacer in. It should just stay then. I'm just going to grease up the speedo drive inside and out. And then we'll just slot it in. Now I've cleaned this completely out, so okay. I think this is like a magnetic induction kind of, rather than mechanical. Anyway, that's the locating dowel, if you like. So we need to make sure that sits correctly in the fork when we slot the wheel back in. That's where it locates, just on there, just to stop it from turning. Anyway, I'm going to grease this and then we'll clean up the other side there and grease that, and then we'll get this wheel back in, spindle in, brake calipers on, job done. Right, so what we've actually got to do is get that in. Which can take a bit of fiddling. Let's try that. And then slip it on there. Now it's coming apart again. There you go, that's it. And then we need to lift that up so that the locating peg slots in, and then we can push the spindle through. Right, we've got the speedo drive fitted correctly, we've got the spacer on the other side, I've got my spindle all greased up and ready to go in. I've changed my gloves to reduce the chances of getting any grease all over the tyre, although chances are pretty slim that we won't. If I lift this wheel up now, I've got that located correctly. not be getting it all over the tyre, but I'm getting it all over the brake discs. Anyway, I think we're through to the fork. It felt like it went through anyway, so I'm going to give that a bit of a tappity tap tap. And this type has just got essentially the spindle's just a long hollow threaded bolt, and the inside of the fork there is threaded, so it won't tap all the way through. It'll go as far as it'll go, then we can just get a spanner on the other end and just wind it in. But it all seems to be pretty much driven home. It's not going to fall apart now. I think the spindle's probably as far as there, so all good. So there it is from this side. Let's see if we can give that a bit of a tap. So I think I'll get a spanner on that now, see if we can wind it in. It should be far enough. Yep. So I don't know what the torque value is on this. It's probably about 60 Newton meters, I'm guessing. I'll quickly go and look that up. Right, I'm gonna fit the caliper this side first. So I'll slot that over. And what I did is I made sure that I got a flat blade and prised those pads apart. Got a little bracket to go on there, haven't I? And that ensured it just slipped nicely over the what is a very small lip in the disc. We'll go around and torque all of these up once we're done. I've just looked up all the specs on these. So the actual axle bolt is 67 Newton meters. And these are 40. And there's a little clip I need to put back on there, which I'm not sure where that came from. Was it on there? I think it was around there. Can't quite remember. This might be the original clip. Yeah, and you know what? Let's get a cable tie, that's had it. A little bit of excess length on this. Cut that off, I think. Just quickly tie it down there. I think that should do it. Doesn't need to be torque forced, just needs to be fixed. Okay, that should be fine. This is of course the less fussy side of the two with fewer bits to fit. I'm just going to quickly check these pads are far enough apart. They seem to be alright, to be fair. The screwdriver's clean. I've actually cleaned it off with brake cleaner before I've done this. Yeah, they seem to be fine. So lots of friction material on there, so I don't need to worry about those for any amount of time. Slot it on. Okay. So again, I have put some copper grease on the bolts. Get that one started. Right there. Right, let's get 67 Newton meters on this. And we'll get 40 on these. One. Pretty much already there. Spins nice. You can't really use a socket on these, unfortunately, because all of the fixings are on the inside. Yes, it's a bit of a pain that you can't get a socket in there, but once you've got them turning, not the easiest of things to fit, but as the last thing, don't forget to pump your brake lever just to bring those pistons back in. Well, there's 1,000,001 ways to change wheel bearings, and everyone's got their own little ways of doing things, so hopefully you found that useful. If you've got a question, leave a comment, I will get back to you, and I will see you next time.